Sharkie Gamer here. Welcome to episode 10 of Prototypes and Unreleased Controllers. In today's episode, we'll be taking a look at the Power Console, a massive controller meant to be released for the SuperGrafx by NEC. This controller did not connect to the system like any other controller. No, the Power Console was actually meant to fit on top of the SuperGrafx console. The Power Console was to be the ultimate controller that would support a whole array of games, specially built to take advantage of its features. So let's first take a look at the controller and all its features, then we'll have a look at some screenshots of the games that were specially built for this controller but were also never released. This is the Power Console, a huge controller that fitted over the SuperGrafx system. It looked like it was just a flight yoke, but it had so much more features built into it. If it had have been released, the only controller you could really compare it to would be the Steel Battalion controller released for the original Xbox. It was close to the same size and had just as many features. It had a large arcade-style directional joystick on the lower left side of the controller. This is a reset and power buttons, to turn the whole SuperGrafx system on or to reset it. The select and run buttons were in the center of the controller. It had 4 action buttons on the right hand side, so 2 more buttons than the usual PC Engine pads. It also had rapid fire switches just above. These were for action buttons 1 and 2. In the center there is a large wheel and flight yoke hybrid. If used as a wheel in racing games, it had analog left and right movement for steering. If used with flight games, it could move left and right as well as up and down. There are 2 buttons on the yoke, and these act as its action buttons 1 and 2. It also had an analog throttle on the left side for full 3D movement in flight and driving games. On the top left of the controller, there is a jog dial and 3 buttons. On the right hand side, there is a 16-button numerical pad. It kind of looks like a number pad on a calculator. This was used to set the date and time on the LCD, as well as used for recording and playback of button presses. Yes, this had programmable function to customize the controller, just like some of the programmable joysticks that were around at the same time. At the top of the controller were 2 LCDs. The right LCD is where it displayed the time in AM or PM, the date, as well as a setting for the button programming function. To the left of that LCD, there is another LCD screen that looks like a radar panel of a plane. It lights up to show the horizon and also approaching enemies in flight combat games. On the far right side of the controller there was a 5-player multi-tap, where you could connect 4 controllers, player 1 having to use the arcade-style joystick on the Power Console itself. On either side there were handles to make it easier to carry the controller. Don't believe me how big this unit was? Check out these photos. These are some photos of people holding the actual Power Console unit, or playing a game with a prototype version of the unit. You can clearly see that this would have been a massive controller. These are some scans of a couple of magazine articles, showing the prototype of the Power Console itself. So as you can see, this thing was packed full with features. So what about the games and software made for it? I only know of a couple of pieces of software that were never released, just like the controller. First, we have the Super Kung Fu, a sequel meant to be used to show off the SuperGrafx capabilities. Next, we have Taisen Pro Mahjong. This was an interesting game because if you wanted to use 1-player mode, all you saw was half the screen. If you selected 2-player, it would fill the screen with double play mode. So basically, half the screen would be player 1, and half the screen would be player 2. If you only had player 1 mode, then you'd only see half the screen. It's a pretty cool little gimmick. And lastly, there was the Power Tool, which just allowed you to test the functions of the Power Console, to make sure it's all working right. The Power Console had an enormous amount of features, and was an awesome looking unit. The NEC engineers really went all out on this thing. Not only would it play racing games and flight games, but any games needing a joystick, action buttons, numerical buttons, or jog dial, and it even had an LCD radar panel. This thing could play any games, even multiplayer games that could take up to 5 players. And on the left hand side of the console, which I haven't covered yet, it had video output from the console, a coin slot, and a bill feeder too. So that was the Power Console, a truly awesome and impressive feature-packed controller. So why wasn't this released? The Power Console was meant to go on sale in spring of 1990, following the winter release of the SuperGrafx system. It was supposed to bring a new dimension of gameplay to the SuperGrafx system. What the company did not expect though was that the SuperGrafx system to become a huge flop. So the plans for both the Power Console and the games that were specially made for it were shelved. So nowadays the only remnants of the Power Console are these photos of the prototype units. Some collectors actually have a prototype unit in their collection. I don't know how many prototypes actually exist, but it can't be many. So because the SuperGrafx system flopped, we missed out on a truly awesome controller. That was the Power Console. There are some rumors though that the Power Console was actually released in China, for a short while at least, and then suddenly it got pulled from the shelves, and apparently it was because it was too weak and they would break. I'm not really sure if this rumor is true or not. I mean, it could just be wishful thinking, thinking that these were actually released in some capacity. But that is another very interesting and very awesome controller not released. Such a shame though as well. It looks so damn cool and I would have loved to have this in my collection. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I am Sharkie Gamer. That was episode 10 of Prototypes and Unreleased Controllers. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll have heaps more gaming controller and accessory videos up very shortly. If you like this video, hit that like button. Really helps out a lot guys. And as always, feel free to leave a comment down below if you want to, and share the video as that helps spread my video around. Anyway guys, thanks for watching.